The way I visualized it, what seems to be going on, and why I want to ask you, like, whether it's the UN, whether it's these other agendas that are at play, or these organizations that are at play. The way I sort of see it, I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary on Netflix known as Fear City. It's about the mob in New York in the 80s and how they took them down, and they were giving this visual about how the mob is set up. So you have like the soldiers that are underneath these the captains, and then you have the captains that report to the underboss, and then you have the boss at the top. So you have this very hierarchical structure within the family, and sort of drew me a parallel between that. You sort of have like the midwives that are operating. I'm not comparing midwives directly to mafia soldiers, by the way. I want to make that perfect.
George.
I want to make that perfectly clear. I'm not directly comparing the two.
I'm not offended by anything you say, don't worry.
There you go. You have the midwives that sort of carry out the bidding of the captains, which I liken to the managers in this instance, just carrying out, the orders that they're told to. And then you're obviously going to have something at the top. Do we have like any idea on what that sort of is? Or am I really digging deep into conspiracy theories here?
No, I think when you follow the money, when you start looking at the money and you start looking at your country and you start looking at the history of your country, and then you look, let's take the NHS, for instance. It was born in 1947. And back then, and let's just particularly focus on maternity. Back then, every woman delivered at home, pretty much, with a doctor's support if needed. Between 1947 and 1970s, it tipped and everybody delivered in hospital very quickly. Now, when people say, oh, so many people died, yeah, but who's given us our data? The people that run the world. So now I question everything and I say, well, if we've only ever had stillbirth data from one entity and that's the NHS, how do we know it's accurate? How do we not know that the stillbirth data has projected a poor model of care into making money? So people argue with me, oh, the stillbirth rate was 30%. Well, how do you know? Well, the NHS told me. What, you trust the NHS that's just put a jab in you that can kill you and give you myocarditis and drop dead with white clots? Hello. This is my argument now. I'm like, I think we all have to sit on the fence now and start thinking, well, and make our own decisions. So when I think about that, and I think about that, people that birthed at home cost nothing but the midwife's time. Yeah? You think now there are 600,000 births a year on average. It's dropped, the fertility rates, the birth rates. Half of those women are induced, and just under half of those women have a cesarean section. And a cesarean section is up to about $8,000, depending if you're private or private's about 10. Why would they want you at home? You make money. So when you start looking at it like that and you start thinking, well, why do they want bums in hospital beds? Why do they want birth trapped into the system? And you start looking at the money, you then start looking at your own CEO. You then start looking at who your directors are, and then you start looking at them up on Companies House, and then you start looking at some connection. Where is the money coming from?